All right. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Or see you next time.
Yeah, we're leaving
The fall or whatever.
now. Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. What y'all gonna do?
Something. I feel like you have more interest in some plans.
Yeah, I could talk about that. I think I can show it.
So, what's up, streaming family, YouTube, and Twitch? We've got the Vintage House Show Apprentices in the studio. They're going to run the show a little bit later, but I'm going to talk to them a little bit about youth and their interest in house music, in dance music, and EDM, and what they're going to do this summer, why they decided to come on and be apprentices on the Street Beat Show or WMUR in general. And right now we're listening to Lori Branch's Pride Mix. June is a lot of different things. There's a lot of stuff going on in June. It is Pride Month, which is really important here for us at the Dance Music Foundation and the Vintage House Show, because house music was primarily formed with the gay Black community here in Chicago. And of course, it's also Black Music Month. Most of those pioneers were of African descent, living in Chicago, coming in from New York. So we have a lot to discuss today. So I'm going to jump right in with the young people, young voices today.
Justice, do you want to start?
Sure.
Spring finals over. What's going on?
So right now, me and Chanel, we're both in the music school here. So our finals are mostly this week. Yeah, and I just had my electronic film music final today. Scoring. Yeah, we got to score a short clip and stuff like that. And I also had like more practical musical finals, like oral skills and music theory that are coming up or are have already happened. But yeah, and Chanel's also taking some of those classes too. And yeah, how has your first year of being at the school in Chicago in the music?
Well, first of all, I live in California, so going to school in Chicago is a really big change in like every aspect ever, definitely weather. But the music school has been great. Just like studying with my teacher, I play piano here, and it's just been amazing getting to know my studio and just how classical music works in like a larger context here. Definitely also getting swamped by my piano journeys right now. Lots to practice for and study for. Also taking some other classes outside, so some bigger projects to work on academically as well. But we make it.
You make it work here at Northwestern School of Music. I've always heard the Northwestern School of Music is difficult. I think it used to probably be more subjective. Like people could come in from all different, sort of types of music, and they didn't have the same rigorous type of criteria that all the other schools used to have. But I heard that changed a little bit. What have you heard about that? What do you think about sort of the music school and how to
Definitely, from what I understand, it always has been somewhat based on classical performance. However, I think as the time has progressed, there's been a newer focus on contemporary music and contemporary works by composers. We have different grants and stuff for bringing in these composers and performing their music. That are from around the world and even just from like around here. I know that a lot of the faculty have held jobs in many major symphony orchestras. We have a large connection with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra here, so we're getting a lot of professors and experience from that aspect of the professional world. I think as far as how admissions have changed, well, I know that there was definitely this big focus on also academic academic strength as well as your musical performance that you do have in your audition. So you have to surpass Beanen's audition standards. Beanen being the School of Music, named after the last president of Northwestern. Well, before Morty Shapiro or Morton Shapiro. Um, but yeah, so there's that performance aspect of your audition and also the academic aspect. That is just in your entire Northwestern application. And what has been hard for them to do is trying to find like the balance between, maybe there's some really great musicians who maybe didn't do so well in high school, but maybe there's some people that did really well in high school, in just their whole academic careers, but then maybe weren't the best musicians. And it's like, where do we, draw that line? Like, who do we bring into the school? So I think there's a good mix of both, where they've made some exceptions on both cases, but it still is a pretty intense setting, though, as far as like performance and what they expect out of you in classes. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think the admissions process reflects what Northwestern is looking for in their students, because after getting into the school, it is really easy to transfer around to different schools and disciplines and different focuses. So I think Northwestern is just looking for students that are, interested in a lot of things and have, a lot of different like interdisciplinary passions and interests. So I think that it's definitely very reflective of that.
Well, that's awesome. So now I'm going to pivot to WNUR Street Beat because you all decided to apprentice. You could have apprenticed anywhere, correct?
I mean, yeah, we did have a preference form, but I feel like we just kept our like preference form open. Like we'll do, whatever. We just want to have a great radio show, and part of that, and like I know our experiences just kind of led us to being in this one.
Jump on in, Malik. So, you all did such a great job this year of helping us troubleshoot. I mean, I think we just didn't have as much, sort of at one point when Facebook became something where people could actually go live and do this is 2014, 2015. We would just jump on air, sound wasn't good, etc. But then, once once everyone else started to level up, we realized we got to really think about our sound, what we're doing. And so it was really hard to sort of get all that going because we're not young. So we just thank you all so much, even though some people know sound and stuff. But thank you. We really thank you for your help and your work on that. But talk to me about the Street Beat show. Like, talk to me about like what you knew about Street Beat before you decided to become an intern on Street Beat, and then the Vintage House show. What you learned, if anything, about dance music, about house music. But let's start with Street Beat because Street Beat, again, celebrating 40 years this year, has been around for a long time. It really has done quite a few things with some of the pioneers of house music. They've all been in these studios or the studios that used to be at Annie Mae Swift. So it is what I consider an iconic sort of show in Chicago. Talk to me about Street Beat and then talk to me about the Vintage House show and what you've learned.
Yeah, so I see this Street Beat and the Vintage House show kind of as a continuation of a class that I took my freshman winter quarter, which was about the politics of Black popular culture, which is really just like a fancy way for like talking about like music trends and like where music came from and how it's impacted us on like a social and political and economic standpoint. And I feel like that class was a great broad opening to a lot of this, but I really love how my time here has, shown me so much about just Chicago specific house music and, hearing all these personal stories and experiences through the different interviews that we've had, and also the styles of music that we have been exposed to through, different people coming in and DJing. So I think it's really, it's been a great time. I wasn't too sure what we're getting into at first, whether when we were assigned to like a different I guess show from WNUR, if we were going to end up doing a lot of DJing, if we're just going to be doing a lot of like music finding and stuff. But I found this to be like a really good I guess combination of all of those things.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely like finding that there's a balance between seeing the artists come in and talk about their own experiences and also play their own mixes or like mix live right in front of us. like everything has been just such a learning experience, and I'm just really grateful to have ended up here and to be able to see all of this right here.
I totally feel the same way, especially keeping in mind that so much of the music we consume now is like comes from Black people, from queer people, from Black people, queer people especially. And coming here, part of my worry, or something I was thinking about, was whether that would be sort of like an appreciation for that history and that culture, or more of like an appropriation of it, especially considering like the school we go to. But I've been really, really, really grateful for and appreciative of this space specifically, with you, with Lori, with Kevin, with all the people we've had come in and mix for
Mommy.
us. Well, Mommy especially,
Yeah.
DJ Mommy, um, and sort of like still like keeping true to our mission of like protecting and spreading house music, but also like getting to dip into disco or funk or soul or things like that, and learning about the people who sort of like keep that alive.
Right.
It's been a gift.
Yeah, the music is a combination of all those different sounds, mixed in with electronica, mixed in with all the beat machines that happened, 40 years ago. And so you do, if you listen, you get to learn about the spectrum of Black music forms, interestingly, and then European music forms as well, and how they all sort of work together, which is I really love. So we are going into two very important months. June is a very important month for music, and certainly for the Vintage House Show. It is Pride Month, and it is Black Music Month. So we have to, figure out ways to combine all of those things. And so it can be very easy actually, but it can also be difficult. It actually kind of sometimes difficult because sometimes, and I think what we found, certainly what Lori found this year when Beyonce made the statement that house music, well, she thanked Black queer, um, the Black queer population for creating the music form. What we found out is that there's a lot of homophobia still with the pioneers who basically have lived their lives around Black gay people as they were forming the music. Frankie Knuckles was a Black gay person. The person who created the warehouse was a Black gay person. Many of the people in the chosen few, not many I should say, but a couple are Black gay people. But then, these little things, all of a sudden you hear words out of people's mouths, and you're like, huh, he's been doing this 40 years, but he still harbors this. And people are sort of hard to give up credit. Well, it was more than just, Black gay people. But, without Frankie Knuckles and Robert Williams, your friends and your colleagues, I don't know where the music is, you know what I mean? But it's hard for people to acknowledge that, which shows I don't know if it's a fear of being taken out of the conversation as a pioneer or real homophobia. So you all didn't hear all these conversations, probably didn't follow all the debates on like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and things like that. But, what do you think when you hear sort of a music form that was, really, I think it flourished because of Black gay people in their environments. And you sort of hinted to a little bit, like, what would people think about that? What do you think about sort of, kind of how people acknowledge that, and kind of what you've heard in your young minds, and sort of just me thinking about what older people are still sort of debating. Young people, how do you feel about that? Is it a big deal? Do you care? What are your thoughts? Anybody?
I think it kind of goes without question that, I mean, yes, homophobia and just sexism and racism do exist in these spaces. And definitely, like, with our generation, I feel like it is not, I don't think people do care around our age as much. Like, I mean, not about the homophobia, racism, and sexism, but they don't really care about who's making this music. I feel like it's just kind of widely perceived and known, like this is the fact, and there's no arguing with that. I feel like a lot of just from the beginning of time, American, whether it's rock, classical music or just hip hop, R&B, disco, house. All of that was primarily led by African Americans. And it's just kind of it is really undebatable. Like you can look at it like, oh yeah, this person did do this thing, but you know, I feel like most people do a good job acknowledging the roots, and it's more like at this point, not really fighting the system as much, but more about fighting the person, who is sharing these, ideas. I'm not sure if I'm wording it the most eloquently I possibly can, but I do think that you know, at least maybe I'm just kind of in my own like social circle, and maybe I'm kind of like, I don't know, oblivious to some of maybe what's going on. But I definitely feel like, you know, most people, at least here in our age, are able to acknowledge that this is the importance of just all of that, and you know, it's kind of like an afterthought really to think about like the people that are taking away from it, because it's just so like ingrained in our minds, like we know that this is the truth. And I don't know, do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I think you spoke a little bit to this fear of like being overshadowed, or sort of like not being included in the narrative. And I think whether it's like when it comes to popular culture at all, like music forms, new art forms, anything, the most marginalized people are the ones going to be pushing that. Um, like things don't change without people at the margins, like sort of spearheading that movement. And I think when it comes to Black queerness and Black queerness in music, especially, um, I think it's so closely tied with Black people who aren't queer, um, that a lot of those pioneers and a lot of those people still want their acknowledgement that they had to fight too, and that they were also marginalized, and that things weren't easy for them either, which is very true. And does deserve recognition, but I think there's also recognition that like you can still be marginalized and not be the most marginalized, if that makes sense. And I think we're at a point now where a lot of those Black pioneers, who aren't queer, have been given their flowers, more or less. But within that story and throughout that history, Black queer people are still waiting, or still have been waiting. And so I think there's a lot of, well, I was there too, and I was fighting too, and we were it wasn't easy for us either. And I think especially for our generation, sometimes it can be hard to hold those two both at the same time. But we're trying.
Got it. Any thoughts on that? Or?
Yeah, I guess kind of jumping off both of you guys, our generation definitely is a little bit more open-minded and flexible towards, not caring too much about what the artist looks like. But also, I feel like there's a lot of other issues that tie into that, such as like fat phobia, like sexism, a lot of things like that definitely do affect, like, these issues are still super prevalent, but I think it's definitely a lot better than previous generations, just because of how we were brought up and how, like, the environment, like, that we grew up in, a digital era, I feel like.
You will have a lot more information at hand. So it's not just your environment where you're learning from. You can learn from all over the world, which is certainly not the case when I was younger.
Exactly.
I was saying, I don't know if we're picking up so much on that microphone. It's a little bit low.
On one, yeah.
I got it all, yeah.
All right, I'll be a little bit louder.
I guess I need to be louder. Maybe I'm not talking loud, but we can hear you pretty good. Well, I listened a little bit. I think I heard you pretty good. But is M2 going?
Yeah, I think M2 is all good.
Yeah. So
we're troubleshooting even now.
So I just did an interview. Jack had one of the young journalists from the Daily talk to me about WNUR. And he asked me, and I'm always very candid, but he asked me, what did I think about Europeans I think he sort of inferred it was like sort of taking over the music or something like that. And he says, because, all the street beat people are like Jack and all these other guys. It's like all, young white guys, with this music. And sort of juxtaposing that with sort of the billionaires, the millionaires of EDM, the millionaires of dance music at this time, Steve Aoki, Skrillex, some of these other people. There's only one black guy, a guy named Afrojack or something like that. So where is he from? Germany, I don't know. But most of the people who are making the millions on this, who are huge stars, that just left Vegas. And when you come in, all the billboards just like go to Tao for, I forget, but every DJ was there in every little spot. And so we think about, so the Europeans are mainly, or just non-black people, non-pioneers, are really making the most money. They really made the music form very different, and that happens in black music a lot. Again, blues goes to rhythm and blues, and then the Rolling Stones grab it, and it becomes a superpower. That kind of thing. And so that happens a lot with black music. Other people sort of love jazz, and they take it to the next level. Because music transforms, all different music genres sort of evolve, that kind of thing. But he asked me about, what we thought about that. And when I was young here at the station, um, there was a black guy from Chicago who allowed me to have a show, but the next producer was a guy named Rob Olson, an Evanston white guy, who had promptly left after a year, compiled CDs, and took him to Europe. He was like, "School, I'm out of here. I'm about to make a lot of money, overseas." And he did. He saw the opportunity and took the opportunity. But I feel like I have no problem with people loving sort of black music. I think people love black music. We have great music, you know what I mean? So why wouldn't you love it? And you want other people to just acknowledge, I guess, that the birth of the music form. Maybe collaborate more. So you're probably making you're making $1 million. Can you give someone a $250,000? That kind of thing with different collaborations. But I wonder what you all thought your whole about EDM, because again, I created this show and this other foundation thing because I knew a lot of people thought that the music was birthed in Amsterdam or birthed in Berlin. Before you arrived here, did you know anything about Chicago pioneers, and what did you think about the music? Are you all sort of dance people anyway? I know I make you all dance sometimes, but I mean, did you all, everyone, I mean, all the festivals are nothing but, sort of dance music. What did you know about the music form and who formed it? And, you know, what did you know before you arrived here about who created house music, or did you care?
I feel like I wasn't as familiar with house music as I, am now that I've been here. But also, it was something that I feel like I've caught on to pretty quickly. It's like I've always known what it was, or like I can hear a tune and know like, oh, like this has this feel to it. And then now, like I'm like, oh, I can put a name to this and say that this is this very confidently. Um, but I would say I think the reason why it's so easy for people to think, EDM and think, oh, like, Germany and Amsterdam and all that stuff is because I feel like when these artists, like these white artists are, playing their music, they're playing it for a specific crowd. They kind of take it and they do shape it and they change it a little bit differently, and make it more appealing to who they are trying to entertain. And it's kind of like, when does this become a different genre, and when does this, I mean, the roots definitely do come from house music, Chicago house music, but we're like, how far away are they at this point in time? And you also have to think about, where these people are performing. They're performing at, these white people are performing at very big, venues and concert halls and stadiums and music festivals where tickets are, honestly crazy expensive. And you're thinking about, a place like Chicago, and where, like the South Side where this originated from, and you know because of, just so much systemic, racism and everything, and how, like just the economic advantages that people have. It's like people aren't spending money to go to these expensive music festivals, you know, that, it's a lot of people from the suburbs that are coming out and they're going to see these music festivals, and, not like necessarily like the people, blue collar working and, just in the city. And it's great that they're enjoying it and they're enjoying it at this larger capacity, but it definitely isn't original to what it was back in the day when it was just people in, you know, these warehouses enjoying the music that you didn't necessarily have to pay to get in, you know, or there were dance battles in, you know, not just like a bunch of audiences standing around like waiting for like the beat to drop.
Right. That's true. Those are good points there. That's for sure. Because if you're coming to an EDM festival, if you're going to Lollapalooza or you're going to Burning Man, etc., you're not there to get a history lesson, really. You know what I mean? But in all honesty, you could make it a little bit of a history lesson by bringing in some collaborators. But I guess if they're paying $300 a day, they just want to see Skrillex. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we don't care about this other guy who's coming in and doing a little mix or something like that. But I think there's still some opportunities there for people to do that. What did you know about the music? Where are you from again?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. So I'm from New York. I'm from Harlem, and so it's interesting. I know everything about sort of like hip hop and where that came from. Like my dad grew up like down the street or a couple blocks away from like where DJ Kool Herc had his first party.
Nice.
And so I grew up and it was sort of always immersed in that form. And sort of knew a lot about like, oh, okay, from New York, the music form went here and there, but I didn't know as much about like what happened in those places. And so when I came here, that was something I was super, super interested in. I remember, I think Chanel and I's first day, we brought in Jeff Payson, I think.
Oh yeah, Jeff
Pazin. And he brought all these pictures and records, and was talking about the warehouse and sort of the pioneers and the one of the museum exhibits he got the privilege to be a part of with the other pioneers. And I was sitting there and I was like, this is a whole new world. This feels like a whole new world, even though it also feels so familiar. And so that was really, really exciting. And I think that part of like sort of what Justice has been saying, I hesitate to say what's been lost, but sort of what isn't brought up as much anymore is part of that evolution in history. I think of a conversation that's going on a lot in the music world right now regarding samples, and sort of like who's sampling who, like whether they're using the samples in ways that are new and exciting or if they're just like flipping them and calling it a new song. And that's where I sort of like think of sort of EDM and the people who are putting on these festivals and using similar beats or using like things that are inspired by pioneers, and passing it off as something new. And that's where I think a line has to be drawn or a distinction has to be made, as opposed to like there are plenty of European artists, of white artists who do that and do it well and do it in a way that respects where the music is coming from. But I think when, like Justice was saying, when people come to these festivals, that's not something that they're necessarily like interrogating or like thinking critically about.
Right, we're just hanging out. Of course, we have a great exhibit that we've done and continue to evolve that I think should be at all these music festivals. I'm like, there's so many beautiful, wonderful, colorful things. We should be able to display the history of house music at all of these festivals. So I'm really hoping for that. But I'm going to pivot now a little bit into your summer journey. Chanel, you are doing something super fun that we all need to be doing. What are you going to do this summer?
I am going to be interning at a place called Echo Stage. It is a music venue in Washington, D.C., and it's owned by Live Nation, which is one of the really big music companies that hosts like a lot of really big raves, festivals, tours, including Taylor Swift's tour right now. But what I'm going to be helping do is just like, guest artist management and like logistics and stuff like that, which is really cool because they do get a lot of the really big DJs that we mentioned earlier, like Skrillex, Steve Aoki. So I think it's going to be really interesting, just like kind of seeing how this works behind the screen, and then seeing how they pick these artists, the logistics of like getting them to play at like certain venues at certain times, managing festivals, managing raves, things like that, and also just like exploring how we could bring more like diversity to that area maybe, and just like seeing how things work, and I think it's going to be really interesting.
That sounds like super fun. And it sounds like something that I can see now that you're already sharp enough to recognize that you need to grab every piece of information when you're there. Because, I mean, people are making, Live Nation, they're definitely making a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So we have to figure out every single part of that puzzle because that's sort of a
Yeah.
puzzle where everything, again, there's artist management, there's venue management, there's, all these different things that come together. The music, what always is interesting to me, which is clearly a problem here, is how do they get the sound to all those? I mean, you see those things, you go back, it's like, it's just nothing but cords, it's just nothing but like wires all over the place. You're like, and then there's pyrotechnics. We last year did a lot of behind the scenes interviews at ARC Fest and Heatwave, some of the festivals we are, and we're always at the Chosen Few Festival here. And you're like, who knows which, if one cord is unplugged, will everything disappear? That kind of thing. I mean, I want to know who does all that. The pyrotechnics, we meet all these people, but all those things are super important to putting together something, and someone makes a lot of money doing that.
Yeah.
So we need you to come back and give us all the details on who is doing that, because we would love to have a small festival here.
For sure.
And just, it would be nice to do something. I mean, clearly people, someone's doing Dillo Day, you know what I mean? So they do this just a smaller scale. How do you scale that to a Live Nation sort of thing? How do you get Taylor Swift all over the world with all of her background information? Someone's got to, make sure her clothing is all in the right place. You know what I mean? It's just like all that is so critical. Anyway, so that sounds like fun. But yeah, get everything. I think I need you to record everything. Bring a USB with you everywhere. Record everything and make sure. I mean, every sheet of paper you need to save and bring back with you, because I think it's going to be valuable to others in some way.
Yeah.
You might want to do something different with your life, but opportunity may come and you might be able to use those skills.
Yeah, and I feel like because I'm also studying economics here, I think it's going to be really interesting thinking about how they use, because money is like a big motivator of like a lot of businesses basically, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they use that to, like, how that intersects with music, especially in bringing in different artists and creating like a lineup that people will really enjoy, and kind of just seeing how like finances will really affect different like aspects of the music business.
Yeah, I want to know how they make that. Like, how much money is being made. They always tell you at these things, like Beyonce made this million, because they have the tour. The Forbes guide gives you, or Rolling Stone tells you, like the highest grossing tour. So you understand that, like, someone made this money. But if they made this money, then the people who create Live Nation is making quadruple that. You know what I mean? Those are not going to give her all that money, even though, whatever, because she still has to pay for all those road people, all those sets, all those things people have to pay for. So that money is serious. And then when you have this music festival like that, I'm not 100% sure how much, like Lollapalooza, how much does each one of those people get paid? You know what I mean? Anyway, I shouldn't be thinking that every minute. But of course, we're all capitalists here in the United States, right? How do people eat? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get, you got to pay for all those things. So I think about that a lot. We are curating the Chicago House Music Festival in a couple of weeks. July 23rd, Friday, come to the Chicago Cultural Center Friday for a conference and discussions, and then at the in Humboldt Park for the music on the 24th. So that should be fun, and I do have a sense of how people are getting paid there, but it's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I know that it's not Lollapalooza. You know what I mean? I just want to see how much they get paid to do that. But so what are you gonna do? And then we'll get to you, Justice.
I'm actually going to be here over the summer. I'm working as a research apprentice for this guy, Mesvin Destin, who runs a lab focusing a lot about like how race and socioeconomic status and like different identity markers inform like motivation, like how you move through high school and college, in the workforce. So I'm doing a lot of work with like figuring out. For example, we have one project going that looks at this group of college students, this cohort at a school in Florida, who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and who are all students of color, and looking at how like either their institutions have either supported them or not supported them, how different stipends or different factors have helped in their growth. We've got a couple of projects with like younger kids and figuring out how people how people and kids specifically like think about their race and how they articulate that and how that changes throughout the years. And so it's going to be exciting. I'm really, really excited. Lots of cool stuff.
Well, bring the kids to the station. I mean, we would love to introduce them to, something different. They may be, you never know who might be interested in this kind of thing. But tell me more about this person. Who is this person? Is he just working by himself doing studies, or like how is that working?
So,
Is he work for a university, or how did you?
He's so cool. So his name is Mesmin Destin. He's a professor here in the School of Education and Social Policy, CESP. But he also does a lot of outside research. He's a fellow at IPR, which is the Institute for Policy Research here. He's one of the co-founders and like the director of what's called CESP Leadership Institute. And so that's a part of CESP, a program in the School of Education and Social Policy that sort of does that work I was just talking about. I'm actually taking part of it next year, which is really exciting. And it's made up of all like either students of color or students from lower income communities, and it works with them on figuring out sort of like who they are, especially in this environment, in this institution, how they sort of maintain that integrity, and sort of how they want to use who they are going forward. And so I've met him in a couple different capacities. I applied to work with him, and thankfully it worked out. But he's really, really cool. So it's me, another student, and then there are a couple other PhD students, a couple PhD candidates, and a couple graduate students in the lab. So lots of
Networking.
Lots of wonderful opportunities to like just see like brilliant minds at work. Yeah,
That's wonderful. I love that. So, Justice, tell us what, on the short term, you think you're going to be doing this summer.
Yeah, so I feel like I have will be funding myself. I will have a job, but also at the same time, I do plan on just exploring a lot of different creative projects. I am a music performance major, but I'm also a composition minor. So I will be definitely writing a lot of new music over the summer, and I'm gonna try to find and explore different mediums to write it and different ensembles to play it. I'll also be taking a lot of dance classes and teaching a lot of dance classes, hopefully, as well as teaching private music lessons. Yeah, I'm really excited for the different opportunities I feel like that are, you know, going to show themselves to me in the summer, because as much as I love to write music here and I have this, nice school with tons of pianos and everything, I feel like I never have enough time to really get into the creative projects that I want and to do a lot of research on them and really work on, I guess, the process start to finish in just kind of like one setting. Like over the summer, I definitely plan on exploring like different regional based music. Absolutely, like as far as like the San Francisco Bay Area goes. Um, and yeah, what that will look like is still a little unclear. Maybe I just don't want to give too much away. I don't know, but it's I'm very excited for the future, and also yeah, just for the dancing too, and everything really. Yeah. And
Talk to me about the dancing. All of you have these like extracurricular things that like are crazy. You're like, oh, I've got to run to a performance and I'm doing this and that. You all are doing a heck of a lot of different things. Talk to me about your dancing.
yeah, so at Northwestern. I'm on two different dance teams here. I'm on Refresh Dance Crew and Fusion Dance Company, and both of them are pretty strongly hip hop oriented. But we've been doing actually our master class series where we've been having a lot of different people come in and just teach great classes. I want to say, yeah, 2 weeks ago, we had a popping master class, the art of, all like the animation dance styles. And I was looking for the calendar of them all to see exactly who's teaching what. But we have a whacking master class coming up on June 3rd. Um, we've had a lot of Chicago-based, dance legends come in and teach, like Matt Kumanas from the Puzzle Box Studio and Puzzle League. And um, oh yeah, one thing I really would like to talk about is we did Fusion Dance Company. We competed in Prelude Midwest, which is this they have Prelude New England, Prelude Bay Area, but it's kind of like a World of Dance type situation where you get invited to, perform at this competition, and there's teams all over from the Midwest. I think we had a team come as far as New Jersey. Yeah, it was a very fun time, and something that I really like that they're doing is they are adding a lot of they're they're trying to make sure that we are understanding as dancers and as the choreographers of these teams, you know, where we're getting our moves from and how we are, contributing to, you know, specifically for Prelude Midwest, the Chicago dance culture. We had four different judges that were all Chicago-based choreographers and dancers, whether they were b-boys or they were, you know, just house dancers. We had four amazing judges, and a lot of the criteria was based on different types of it was based on like different genres and elements that are incorporated into them that are taken from different cultures. So I know that like we as our team for Fusion, we incorporated whacking into one of our pieces. We incorporated Chicago footwork into another one of our pieces, and a lot of the music that they played throughout, just like the intermission and the breaks, was great. Like we had, I'm forgetting the name of that song, but we had him come in as a guest. He's like, the house music. Oh, sorry, I don't sing, but
Yeah, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Somehow I just lost the name, but yes.
But yeah, so his song was playing, in the
cool.
intermission. I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. Like I met this guy, and they did a really good job at yeah, just I guess going all in on the whole Chicago dance scene, and I was very happy to see the connection between this and then my dance team.
You are just so multi-talented. Are you dancing, acting, or what are you doing?
So right now, primarily, I'm acting. I just finished. I this spring I've been doing a lot of projects. The first one I did this spring was this play called How We Got On, which was really exciting. And that was actually a perfect time, like Justice was saying, to like also be doing this work, um, because that play was all about like being like Black youth and how they sort of like find their love for music and find their voices through hip hop and sort of like Black genres. And so I was learning about things like the Akai NPC through this play, and then I would come here and be like, oh, like I'm looking at a CDJ, and now I know like where that sort of comes from, and sort of how all of this connects. And so that was really exciting. I've been a part of a couple different processes at our like Northwestern Theater here, the Word Center, Sandblasted and Sweat, which both were directed by incredible Black artists, Netta Simone Middlebrooks and Tora Campbell. And I got very, very lucky in that regard. Both of those plays are about like Black joy, and sort of like race relations and how we sort of like find ourselves and rebuild. And then I've also started to like um, sort of go to Justice's dance classes at like Refresh and Fusion. So that's also been a really cool experience. But yeah, I think art in all its forms is such a beautiful um, outlet, such a beautiful tool, and it's something that brings us all together. My uncle, one of my uncles, always says like the two things everyone likes are music and food, um, and so that's been really really cool to sort of like get to live here.
So now, are you doing some other sort of more creative things other than the creative music thing you're already doing? Are there some? Are you a closet actor or something too, or no? Like,
I am not. My main thing is just playing the piano. Um, I don't know. It's just something I've been doing for forever since I was little, and I'm doing classical piano right now, but I'm looking to go more into jazz music maybe in the future. Um, but yeah, no, it's just something that I love doing, and I'm just really lucky to be able to study it here academically with my studio, my professor. Um, yeah, no, it's just amazing, and I feel like I've been able to learn so much through doing like new pieces and like different styles. Been exploring impressionism lately, but yeah, definitely doesn't sound as cool as like acting. Fun fact, I actually did go to see Justice's fusion show and Malik's How He Got On show, and they were both really, really amazing.
Look, where are the tapes on this? I'm not even gonna believe you did it unless someone shows me some like YouTube, someone shows me like a video. Where can we find it, guys?
You have like tapes.
I do have tapes in videos. They are on Fusion Dance Company Northwestern's YouTube channel. And we also have some stuff on Instagram. But also before we like get too much into this, like I actually really do have to plug Chanel.
I was also going to.
I heard
she's being so modest. She's being so
Chanel
humble.
play piano like 2 different occasions, and both times I was like absolutely blown away, like with the talent, like the fact that, you know, I mean, I guess like as a classical musician, you're supposed to memorize things, but it's like at the speed in which she memorizes them and like the recall that she has, like, you know, do something months later and have it like still pretty much perfectly memorized without like having looked at it in a while. And like what I like walked into a practice room, she was playing a piece that she was working on for like maybe like a week.
Yeah.
It was a week, and she had the whole thing memorized. It was like 4 minutes long of like the craziest like
Rachmaninoff. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Lord, you have no idea. I don't know if you were here the one day someone got locked out of the soundscape. But we were here for a while. We were here for a while and like had a wonderful conversation. And at some point, Chanel sits down at the piano, and Justice is also a classical musician.
Where's the piano? Where's the piano?
There's a piano in the soundscape room.
That big room.
And so I'm with like 2 Beanin students, and so they're classical musicians. They sort of like know the jargon and like the like world sphere this is in. I have no sort of like touchstone for this.
Me either.
And so they're having a conversation, and Chanel is like, oh, I can play something. Justice is like, do you know Rock 2? And I'm like, who is Rock, and why are there 2 of them?
Right.
And Chanel sits at the piano, and for it had to be like at least 4 minutes straight, no sheet music, no nothing, just her and the piano, just goes. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. Like to this day, I still like I'll go back and listen to that movement, and I have no like I'll go back and listen to Rock 2 and be like, I know her. Like this is crazy, and this is something that like is not like there are prodigies, and of course prodigies are great and whatever, but there's a certain, sometimes you watch someone do something and you're like, this is the product.
You know it's special.
This is this is not only talent, this is the product of like days and weeks and months and years of work and love for what you do. And so I don't know if I ever like got to say that to you, but it was like,
thank you for saying that, because I would not have known that. I didn't know we were sitting with a genius.
No.
You know?
I have a little video of it. I'll show you after you have this.
Text it to me, guys. Text me. I want to see these things. Text me the like YouTube things, because I just Fusion. I don't know if I find it. So I'm so excited. You all are so super talented. What did you all think you all were going to do today? Because I was really not even going to come. I was like, I'm going to program this from someplace else, so you all get it done. Do something. I know you've done things in the past. So I was hoping, of course, through the entire time you've been here, that somehow one of you all would pick up DJing.
Don't worry, we're cooking. We're cooking.
People
It's
make a lot of
exciting.
money DJing. I'm just saying, like, I wish I would have learned it myself. I didn't learn it. We played vinyl, and I would just blend the vinyl in. And one time I tried to do it myself and realized, ooh, this is hard. Like, you need to really understand and know the, you need to know every song and where the breaks are and speed things up, slow things down. I was like, sounds like a lot of work. So I didn't do it. But I realized that people are making a lot of money doing these things. So why wouldn't you all sort of pick up the skill, even though you all are multi-talented anyway, but you're here, you might as well try to do some things. All right, so you all are all busy this summer. So did you not want to work on a film?
I mean, I did. I mean, I do. I just it's kind of, it is really hard trying to find I guess things that will, one, like, support your education, like, while you're still, like, I guess, like, for example, like you couldn't go to Los Angeles, get an internship. That's already, like, one hard part of it, but another hard part of it is, oh, how am I going to support myself in Los Angeles with some of the most expensive housing prices,
Right.
for a whole summer when I'm making probably minimum wage.
Nothing, right? Yeah.
And I'm still from the Bay Area, which is still very great in many aspects as far as, like, internships and opportunities, but a lot of them are just in tech, and a lot of them are in, finance, or, social media, PR, startups, which, is great, but that's just not necessarily, you know, where my strengths fall, and, what I really want to do with my life. And, just even after talking to, like, my academic advisor here, he was like, yeah, no, like, you honestly should just focus on, passion projects, for the time being, until you can, like, build your portfolio as a composer, or, get really good at your craft. So, when you come back, people are not just necessarily going to want you for, free labor, but, like, they're going to want you to,
Because
you're skilled, and also,
compensate you for that.
exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to building my own collection of repertoire, both as a performer and as a composer. Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I'm happy you kind of like your advisor. I'm a big fan of having several advisors because in the past, time after time, I hear adults telling young people like yourselves the wrong advice. FYI. So I want you to talk to others as well and make sure. So oftentimes you see these people. I just saw something on Twitter. This guy just got his PhD, and he writes in there, my third grade teacher said I would be nothing, that kind of thing. And he persevered. He's a PhD student now, right? But not everyone is as strong. If someone said that you'll be nothing, you just think, wow, some people internalize that and don't move forward. And so I'm always sad that there are people there who are giving you the advice that, may not be as forward thinking, maybe, but so sometimes it's good to get a couple of different pieces of advice from adults, even your own parents. Again, my parents, I told you, if I didn't say this before, when I was doing the radio show, a radio station called me and said, come and interview. And, I was in tech, so I was just doing this for fun. And my mom was like, you're going where to do what? I thought you wanted to be like an engineer or something. So I was like, so I didn't go. She didn't encourage me to go. And I listened to her and I didn't go. You know what I mean? You never know the trajectory. And here I am still, doing this today. You know what I mean? In a different way. But you never know how that could have been different. But I'm always just want you to think about that. And I will give you another story. The dean of the engineering school, it's funny to me now because I am very, I sort of, I don't need a lot of encouragement to do anything that I want to do. You know what I mean? Some people are very, I can't think of the name of it, but the dean of the engineering school, I was like, I don't know what was going on, but I had to write an essay to stay in the engineering school or something. And she was like, this is a wonderful essay. Are you sure you don't want to sort of look into, English or something else. And I
That's
just laughed.
crazy.
I was like, and again, anybody else would have been like, well, maybe my English is good, and maybe I should have done that. But you know what I mean? It was like, this is a grown woman discouraging me from continuing my studies in engineering. I wasn't the best engineering student, but I was just here to hang out, basically. That was my goal. How can I hang and whatever? So,
I was gonna say I'd really like to also speak on that because I totally agree. Because I honestly forgot about this until you brought it up. But I had a professor who was actively, encouraging me to drop my major as a classical performance in major. He was like, every lesson, he was like, "Do you really want to be here? Like, why are you like doing this? Like, are you just going through the motions? In 3 years, you're gonna be done with your school, and that just goes by like this. Like he's like, I care about you. Like, I want you to find a job in the future, and you're just not gonna be competitive and all this stuff." And then it's like, and it's funny because like I it went in one ear and out the other, and I don't know, but like I could see how like that would really stick to someone, and it has stuck to students. Like we've had, you know, 5 people drop the bassoon performance studio since I've been there, which is, and one of them being a graduate student too. It's like she finished her whole undergrad in music and bassoon performance, and then she gets to her graduate level, and like doesn't last a quarter with this man after she, for 4 years of her life in undergrad, she was like, "This is what I'm pursuing," and then comes to Northwestern for her graduate degree, and then it just, "Oh no, I'm not doing music anymore," and
that really upsets me.
yeah, it
It
does.
really does upset me. Now, by the way, many years ago, there was the dean of CAS, which is called Weinberg now. Any pre-med student who was of African descent, almost every single one, he met with and discouraged and told them not to be those majors. Many dropped, but many heard that, and they created this thing. I forget what it's called now. I know all of Northwestern Black history, but somehow mine is bad. But they created a thing where they all sort of came together and then started to encourage the others because they realized that the dean was actively discouraging every Black med student. And that's a tragedy. And so we talked about that. Again, you all should know I wrote a book about Blacks at Northwestern. And, we tell those stories. But again, you have to be careful with the advice that you take. And clearly, you all are self starters, that kind of thing. But some people can listen to adults. Even your own parents don't know all the answers. Sorry, parents. But they're
My
all
mom might
learning
be watching
too.
this.
Right?
Hi, mom. Sorry.
They're all learning. We're all learning too how to talk to young people, how to encourage them, and sometimes they just didn't have the our parents from Alabama. They're like, they want you to do certain things. Certainly, immigrant parents are like doctor, lawyer. That's it. That kind of thing, and don't think about anything creative or don't think anything else. So you have to be very forward thinking and do your be creative and really, chart your own path, know who you are. And that is my adult advice today. Well, thank you all again so much. I hope to see you all back in the fall. Come back with ideas. Come back with new stuff. Chanel, I expect you to come back and share everything.
I will.
Yeah, record everything. We want to maybe play some things that you all, sort of listen. Go to some concerts. Go to some festivals, guys. I mean, if you're in Chicago, Chicago has a gang of fests all year. Jack, you can jump on. We'll just fade us right out. We're just chit chatting.
Yeah, no worries.
But
always happy to support the chit chat.
well, we gotta jump in too. What are you gonna do? What are you up to this?
That's a fantastic question. I mean, hopefully Israel should still be around. I'm staying in Evanston for the summer, and then I'm moving into the city, hoping to do some freelance journalism work.
Yay.
Working right now. I'm working on a. Hold on. Get everybody.
I don't know.
Hold on. I can.
Oh look, that's
Yeah, there we
almost
go.
you. I'm just
We
gonna
got
get
it
you
all.
all.
We got everybody in the
photo. I'm gonna get you all real quick because I look crazy, but I want to get you all.
Anyway,
we'll get another one too.
I'm working right now for a class. I'm working on a documentary actually about a trans guy who has this organization in Chicago called the Queer Kickboxing Club, and that's what he's ideally hoping to turn into his full-time business eventually. But it's been super interesting to follow him, so hopefully I'll be able to continue to follow him. Got a couple more film ideas kind of poking around in the back, but I think one of the things that I really do respect from my parents is that my mom was very willing to just be like, you don't have to have it all figured out, and just being very upfront about and saying that of like, oh, it's okay if you don't have everything figured out. I didn't have everything figured out when I graduated from college, and I think it's silly to expect that you have everything figured out. So,
It's so weird though, but sometimes you're in this Northwestern environment, and I'm telling you, everyone was a self-starter, and I felt like I was a self-starter. But when I was young, these kids, the football players, everyone else, you think, oh, they're football players, maybe they're not that smart. No, these cats were all going to Harvard after school. Like, they were not interested in like the football thing at all. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a fellowship and going here, and I'm doing that. And I was like, what are you, 20? Like, how do you know? But some people knew exactly what they were going to do.
And
I was
ridiculous.
around people who knew exactly what they were going to do. I was the only one who was like, I think I'll just be undecided for a while. They're like, undecided? What kind of crazy?
It makes me jealous. I'm like, man, I wish I had it all figured out.
I wish
I could have been like that, but
and some people are talented too. Like, people have talent. I can say you all like,
oh, Jack.
I didn't have like that one super talent. Like, I didn't, some people just can sing. Like, you can't learn that sometimes. Like, God blesses you with like this talent that you all can, use in a different way. And I didn't have that. I always thought like there were just some people who were just naturally gifted in certain ways, and I knew right away, like, God, I don't have any of that. Right? I have to read this book. You know what I mean? Like, just to figure out something. But it's great to have talented people around you. All right, guys.
I'm gonna go ahead and
start it up, and we'll
now.
jump it off. And I'm gonna say, guys, please tune into the Vintage House Show. Next in June, we are celebrating Black Music Month, and we are celebrating Pride Month, and we're just going to have a good time in preparation for the Chicago House Music Festival and the Chosen Few Festival. We're going to have a good time here. I hope that you all can come back next year. Tell us about your experiences. We will show you. We always do a sort of recap of summer because it's always super hot. So please come through, check it out. You are listening to the Street Beat Show, the Vintage House Show on WNUR, with our apprentices who are leaving us. We never did introduce all of you all. Tell us all your names, and we'll head out.
I'm Malik Middleton.
Take us out, guys.
Oh,
bye, guys.
I wish you a wonderful summer and a wonderful Black History Month. Not Black History Month, Black Music Month, and a wonderful, wonderful Pride Month. Please enjoy the Izzo Hour.
The Izzo Hour. Thanks, guys.
You have the video of Chanel playing piano?
I do. It's on my phone.
No. We need to take a quick picture.
Okay, need to show you Chanel playing piano.
Does the show go on?
Yeah, we're here all
Okay.
Yeah, so next week we got, we're trying to get in preparation for the House Music Festival, so we're trying to crowd in as much as we can. I figured I'd give everybody a break.